Love is in the air tonight. I am yours, so hold me tight. Love is in the air tonight. Oh, love is in the hold me tight. Love is in the air tonight. Ooh, yeah.
Men pay attention to the socioeconomic class of the man who is trying to court her. Because what statistics show is that men from lower socioeconomic classes, that means the lower middle class, working class, and the poverty classes, those men are not likely to desire marriage. So for marriage-minded women, those who want to get married, those who want to start families, it is important to understand which men are willing to or have the desire to do so. And how do I know, besides the studies? It's because I talk to men, right? I spend an exorbitant amount of my time talking to men and trying to figure out what men want, how to solve the problem when it comes to dating, mating, and marriage, how to bridge the gap between men and women to get them married, right? To get each side what it is that they desire. So men in lower socioeconomic classes, when I look at men in the lower socioeconomic classes, I also apply the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And if anyone's familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then you understand that the base need is psychological needs, right? That is air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. So most people in the lower socioeconomic classes are just basically trying to survive. They're trying to make sure that they have shelter, food, water, clothing, and they're getting from day to day. Then you also have the next ring of needs is safety needs, personal security, employment, resources, health, property. After that, you have love and belonging, which is friendships, intimacy, family, and sense of connection. And then you have esteem, which is respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. Then the last step is self-actualization, desire to become the most that one can be. You take a guess to figure out which need men are in the lower socioeconomic class, where they're focused at, where they're still at. One could say that they're still at 1 and 2, physiological needs and safety needs. They're focused on trying to make sure that they have shelter, that they have food, that they have all of their basic needs taken care of, right? Then they're trying to make sure that they're safe, that they're surviving, that they're making it from day to day. So they haven't gotten to the next step after that, which is love and belonging, friendship, intimacy. Not saying that they don't want that, but when you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're looking at what people need the most, right? And if their physiological needs and their safety needs are not completely taken care of, then they can't really move on to the next step. They can't completely move on to love and belonging, although it's something that they want. And I'm not going to say that they don't want it. It is something that they want. But when it comes down to it, really putting hard work and effort into a relationship is just something that they don't have in them when they're focusing on trying to make sure that their basic needs are met. So they're not likely to desire marriage. Now, I'm not saying that men in the lower socioeconomic classes are bad people, although they don't have the character traits that women desire of long-term mates. They don't have the characteristics and traits that women desire of husbands. Now, how do I know this? Not only do I talk to men, but I look at and research data. And divorce happens at a higher rate in the lower socioeconomic classes than it does at the higher socioeconomic classes. Well, why do these divorces happen? We know that the number one reason is irreconcilable differences. But when you break down irreconcilable differences, what exactly does that mean for women, right? It just means that a woman has decided that this marriage is no longer working for her. Her and her partner is no longer compatible. And even if there is infidelity, even if there is, infidelity, abuse, she's not going to want to draw out the process. And so she's just over. She's ready to just end it, especially if she knows she's not going to get anything. There's nothing to fight over. There's no children to fight over, or he doesn't have the money to pay for the children like she thinks like he's supposed to. They don't have any property, don't have any assets. So there's no need to fight it out through divorce. You just file your irreconcilable differences, get a dissolution of marriage, and that's it, and you go on by your ways. Typically, people who have property, they have assets, then they will file an actual divorce. But most of the divorces happening amongst the lower socioeconomic classes are dissolutions and not actually, in fact, divorces. So that tells me that there is no property division, there is no asset division. But why are these women leaving? Right? They're leaving because there is lack of compatibility as far as finances, emotional connection, intimacy, right? A lot of times women who file for divorce at this level, they're saying that their emotional needs are not being met. There is not a connection. They're not being cherished, right? There's no romance. The men are getting complacent. Money is funny, right? So she feels like she's just doing it all by herself. So she's having to work. And then she's coming home, and then she has to make sure everything is all good. And she feels like she's just in the marriage by herself, and she's doing everything by herself. So you're going to see these men are going to find themselves with the highest divorce rates because of the characteristics that they have. And I'm not saying that they're bad men. I'm just saying that they're not necessarily good mates for long-term mating or marriage. When you look at the divorce rates amongst the higher socioeconomic classes, they're actually pretty low. They're hovering around 20%. Although divorce is dropping across the board, they're much lower than that of the lower socioeconomic classes. Divorces amongst the lower socioeconomic classes sit at about 50%, maybe a little over 50%, whereas divorces in the higher socioeconomic classes sit at 20%. So, for marriage-minded women who want to get married, you have to look at the type of man who is likely to want to get married. And I talk to a lot of men, and I'm not trying to shame men into getting married. I'm just simply saying that there are a lot of women who want to get married. So if you're not desiring to get married, then you have to understand that those women are going to seek husbands elsewhere. And so I help women and I educate women on how to attract those men. Because men in the higher socioeconomic classes do have much higher standards, and they have much more stringent criteria as to what they're looking for in a wife. So I help women cultivate themselves into wife-worthy mates for high-value men. So it's twofold. So it's helping to increase the pool for high-value men, and it's also helping women to address what it is that they need to have or within themselves in order to qualify for such men. This is not to shame poor men or men who are in the lower socioeconomic classes. This is just to get those men to understand that if you want a partner, you want a wife, you're going to have to wake up. You're going to have to get on board with what women are looking for as far as their desires when it comes to marriage. Women are no longer trying to settle for being in a marriage relationship where you got to rob Peter to pay Paul. Or she's likely to be the breadwinner, or she's having to play the role of mommy and having to pour so much into you that she has so very little for herself. Women want to be poured into, as they should be, because we are the feminine resting passive energy. So we should be poured into. We should be the receiving energy, while the masculine is the giving energy. So when it comes to class, when it comes to the attributes of men, and the attributes of what women are saying they're looking for, I'm just going to say it, ladies. You're going to find that mostly in the men at the top. And the reason why that is because at the top, people are governed by rules, etiquette, regulations. There's just so much control at the top. That's why a lot of people don't want to go to the top, because they know that when they reach the top, they're bound by certain things. There's a lot more freedom at the bottom. You can be whoever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. That's why you can be a stripper. You can be a prostitute. You can be a porn star. Whether you're male or female. You can be lazy. You can be a bum. You can have no career, no job, no family. Nothing. You have so much freedom at the bottom of the societal hierarchy. But the moment you start climbing, the higher you go, the more you're going to be bound by rules, right? And so those men tend to be more disciplined. Those men understand that marriage is essential to their growth, that marriage and family is essential to their rise. You're only going to get so far without children and family. And even if you have men who come from the lower socioeconomic classes, because they do, who then rise to the top, even they start to understand that. That's why by the time they're in their 40s, never been married, never had any children, now they're scrounging to find their wife, because it is something that is required the higher you go. So when you have disciplined men, you have motivated men, you have ambition men who are at the behest of the social circles that they're a part of. So those higher social circles, there's etiquette, there's rules, there's demeanor, there's all types of other things. Hi, Phil. I see you in the green room. I don't know if you can hear me yet, but I'll bring you up when I'm done. He's probably like, what the heck is going on with Letitia? Like, I know I got a new look. I'm trying something different. So when you're at the top, the higher up you go, the more there's more control. So the attributes that women are looking for are going to be situated in men at the top, because that's just what comes naturally for that socioeconomic class. So let's look at those attributes, what some of those attributes are, right? You have emotional intelligence, you have discipline, you have control of his person. You're not going to see men at the top out here with so many children by so many different women. You're not going to see them, even if they do have a little drug problem, you're going to see that under wraps. And if it does get out, they're quickly sent off to rehab to handle that. Drugs, drinking, gambling, all of that stuff, when it gets out, it's quick. They're quickly sent off to rehab to handle that. Whereas in the lower socioeconomic classes, we tolerate a lot of that. Promiscuity from woman to woman is not something that's applauded in the upper socioeconomic classes. I don't care. I've heard the rhetoric of men with money have options. Yes, but they're not running through women in their socioeconomic class, their social circle, and just taking advantage of them and treating them like they're prostitutes or 304s. No, if he wants to have options, he goes get him a lower class woman, or he goes get a prostitute or an escort. They're not running through the women at that level, right? They're not running through the high value, high caliber women. You're not going to see him be funny with his money. He's going to if he is making bad decisions, there's going to be some finger pointing and some wagging and some conversations